welcome to my 2025 goals wrap up. We made it. I'm here to wrap up all of my goals that I had set for myself to accomplish in 2025. I did pretty well, I'm not gonna lie. And then we're gonna talk about the prizes that I'm going to decide on and talk about some stats and just how I think the year went. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about my goals first. So my first goal, we're going to get it out of the way. This first one was a failure. So if you haven't seen any of my videos before, I ranked like how well I did from amazing to abysmal with great, okay, and bad in the middle. And this one is abysmal. So we're starting off the video with -2 points. The first goal that I had set was to read one big fantasy series. Now I will say, this is abysmal, but not for lack of me trying. I tried so many fantasy series and DNF'd every single one of them. Even at the end of the year, I was like, maybe if I can just read a trilogy and like it. Didn't happen. So I only ended up reading one book in a big fantasy series and either completed it in that one or tried the second one and then DNF'd it within the second one. And so I got an abysmal rating, so it's -2 points, but it's fine. Honestly, like, even though I didn't actually fully read a big fantasy series, I think I learned a lot about what I'm looking for in fantasy, and I got so many books off of my shelves that I'd been collecting all the books for and then read it and didn't like it. And so I was able to get those out of my collection, which feels good in its own way. The next goal was to finish Taming the Shelves Part 1. So I've been really working to read down the physical books that I have to make them fit better on my shelf. So Taming the Shelves Phase 1 was a little project I was doing where I needed to read books on my shelves and get rid of books until I didn't have books stacked up on top of other books. So I used to have all of my shelves double stacked. So books in back, books in front, and then books like stacked on top. And things didn't fit well on my shelves. I couldn't see what I had. So my goal was to not have any books stacked on top of other books. If a shelf was double stacked, that was okay. And I completed this. So there will be a phase 2. If you've seen my 2026 goals video, phase 2 is getting my shelves so they're only single stacked, not double stacked. So I got an amazing score. All 12 of my shelves fit the criteria of not having books stacked on top of other books. So I earned myself 10 points for having an amazing score. The next goal that I tackled this year was to find a new detective series that I loved. I set a goal to read 10 books in different detective series, and hopefully in the process of reading those 10 books, I'd find one I love. And I was able to read 10 books, so I earned another 10 points. And this was good. I ended up DNFing a lot of series I thought I was gonna love throughout the year, like the Soulless series, the Elizabeth George series. I can't remember the detective's name. I ended up DNFing those. I did read The Butcher and the Wren, which I really, really loved. This is written by someone who has like a true crime podcast, and they wrote this series about a medical examiner who gets wrapped up into the serial killer case. And one of the things I was looking for is a story that's kind of continuing from book to book, so it's not so episodic with the mysteries. I like an overarching story as well. And this series only has 2 books so far. I hope she's going to be writing more because I really enjoyed both of them. The first one, The Butcher and the Wren, was better than The Butcher's Game, but I liked both of them. And this story of the serial killer is very dark and creepy in like a fun way, if that makes sense. So I'm really liking that one. So I get 10 points for trying detective series. The next goal was to read at least 7 classics, and I ended up reading 10 classics over the year. A lot of them were DNFs. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have a lot of new favorites. I even pulled out like a John Steinbeck that I thought I was gonna love, Tortilla Flat, and I didn't really like it. I tried to read Pilgrim's Progress, which I loved the movie of when I was a child. I thought I was gonna love that one, and I didn't. So this was kind of a fail for me for classics this year, but I read them, which is the whole goal. So I definitely achieved my goal of reading 7 or more, so I earned 10 points for this goal as well. The next one was a very big goal, and in fact, when you're seeing this video, you have not yet seen one of the videos for this challenge just because I had so much end of the year stuff to do. So this goal was to try all of the authors that I own multiple books by that I haven't read. So for example, I own a lot of Robin Hobb books, but I hadn't read any Robin Hobb. So I wanted to try all of the authors who I haven't read from before, but I've collected multiple books of theirs, trying to figure out, do I actually like this author? And it turned out that this was a great project to do because I ended up DNFing a lot of books, unhauling a lot of books off of my shelves, and also reading some books that I really loved. So I had 23 is what I counted at the beginning of the year. And then I ended up like counting way more. I think it was like 34, 35 authors that I ended up reading over the course of the year. So I did a try chapter video to try all the extra authors I had not realized I owned multiple books by or just forgot to count them. So you're going to be seeing that try a chapter video soon. Just know that that took place back in 2025 when I was like still working on this goal. So as of right now, on my shelves, I have at least read a chapter from every single author that I own multiple books by but have not read. Some of those authors I read the full book by them. Some of them I only tried a chapter. So I earned 10 points for this goal. This was my like big hitter, like really hard goal to hit because it's a little easier to like read authors that I know and love. It's hard to like go out on a limb and try new authors sometimes. So definitely this was a project, but one that I'm happy I've done. The next one was to focus on reading fantasy mass market paperbacks. I own so many of these fantasy mass market paperbacks, especially the ones that are like older fantasy, and so I wanted to read at least 12 of them. I did that. I absolutely smashed that goal. I focused on a lot of them. I ended up DNFing a lot of these fantasy mass market paperback books because I'm finding that I need something very specific from my older fantasy, and a lot of them weren't kind of living up to that expectation. And so there were a lot of DNFs, a lot of unhauls, but so happy that I tried them and I focused on them because sometimes I pass them over for like other books. So I definitely read 12 or more, so that's another 10 points that I've earned. The next goal was to read more books that I owned than physical books from the library. So audiobooks and graphic novels don't count because those are two things that I don't own. I don't own graphic novels. I don't really buy them to read. I get them exclusively from the library. And then audiobooks, I don't have any sort of subscription service to audiobooks, so I just get them from the library. So I excluded those two things, but if I was reading a physical book, I counted whether it was from the library or from my own shelves. And to reach an amazing score, I had to reach 75% or higher. And as of the end of 2025, I read 77.39% books that I owned and only whatever's left over, some 23% books from the library. So this was one of the hardest goals that I had to do this year. It was really hard to say no to new releases and fun books that I was going to get from the library and really focus on reading the books I own. But I think it's so worth it because of all the progress I made on reading the books I own. The next goal was to finish 10 series that I had started before 2025, with 2 exceptions, Redwall and Discworld, which are really long fantasy series that I'm taking my time with. But the other series, I wanted to finish 10 of them. Originally, when I made this goal, I thought I was only in the middle of 10, and I remembered some that I was in the middle of as the year went on. But the goal was 10, so I didn't quite finish all of the series I had started before 2025. I got a lot of them. So I definitely finished 10 of them. I'm very close to finishing like 4 others. So I made a lot of progress on series this past year. So 10 points for that one. So those were my main goals. And then I had a bonus goal that I kind of stopped tracking partway through the year. And that was to see how many physical books I could read without buying a book. So I had like different ranges set up where if I read less than 10 books before buying a new book, then I would get negative points. If I only read between 11 and 20 books before buying a book, then I got 0 points. And I did track this, and then I kind of fell off the bandwagon of tracking because I forgot to mark which books I read after I went and bought some books. But before I bought books, from the beginning of the year to my first book haul, I did track it, and I was in the okay range, which was between 21 and 39 books. I don't remember my exact number, but I read roughly 25 books in a row that I owned without buying new books, and then I forgot to track from there. So I earn a bonus 3 points. So that brings my total up to 71 points. And now we get to get some prizes with those points. So my prizes had been a massage for 50 points, a bookshop crawl for 20 points, a bookish t-shirt for 15 points, a library crawl for 10 points, a library request haul, meaning I just request a bunch of books from the library, 5 points, and then buying any one book, 5 points. So when I set these goals in 2024, I hadn't imagined I would have been unemployed for this long. It's been very hard to find a job in a new career, and so finances are not what I was hoping they would be. So as much as I would love to go get a massage, I think that's just off the table right now. We just don't have that much money for me to go spend on a massage, and I don't know when finances are going to change for the better. So we're just, trying to like be responsible with our purchases. I may splurge and buy a bookish t-shirt because my body has changed over the past few years, and I've had to donate a lot of clothes that I used to love that don't fit me. And so I've been thinking about like replacing them. So maybe I could find like a booktuber maybe that has some merch that I could do a little splurge and support a fellow booktuber by buying a t-shirt that I would love, that I could add to my collection, just to since I'm already needing to get some more clothes that fit me a little better. So I think I'm definitely going to do a bookish t-shirt. A bookshop crawl. I might do this and just, instead of just like buying as many books as I want, which is kind of what this original goal was, I may just like take a bookshop day and just go wander, enjoy reading in bookstores, like try some chapters of books, mark some books that I want to buy later, maybe buy like a couple books that I find, and just have like a fun bookish day. I can do what I planned, which was to go visit a bunch of bookshops, but I can do it on a budget. Like, I don't need to buy 30 books. I can buy like a couple books and just enjoy like going around and shopping my favorite bookstores. So I think I'm going to do that one. So that would be 35 points between those two. And then I'm definitely going to do a library crawl. This is 10 points. And I just want to go visit libraries in my library system. There are quite a few branches that are close by that aren't like the normal one that I go to. So I want to go like take a whole day and go visit a bunch and bring home some books that maybe their library has that I don't see often in my library, and just have fun like seeing if there's another library that like I love and would want to like hang out at. And we're 10 points. So that would bring us up to 45 points. A library request haul. I will definitely do this. This just means like if I'm excited about a book and I don't see it at my library, I can request that they send it to me from another branch. And so like taking like a week or two to like request a bunch of my most anticipated books that I'd love to read, and requesting them from the library and reading them and doing like a couple vlogs of reading them. Definitely going to do that one. That would bring us up to 50 points spent. And then buying any one book. I think I'm going to use the rest of my points for buy any one book. And the next time that there is a 50-cent book sale, spend the last 20 points on buying some books from that book sale. So being able to do that, because again, being cautious of funds. Originally I'd meant like you can just buy brand new books if you want them. But we're going to do it a little differently. So taking myself to the little 50-cent book sale and buying some books from there and telling you about them later. So that's how I plan to spend my points over the year. And I will definitely be vlogging any of these interesting things. If there's something that you really want a vlog of, let me know and I'll make sure to like do a special vlog of me going and getting that prize. Okay, and then I just had a few stats that I wanted to share from my little tracker sheet that I've been keeping track of throughout the year. We're going to start with series. This is very interesting. So over the year, I interacted with 25 different series. I DNF'd 19 of them. So I was ruthless this year with reading like a book one. If I don't love it, I'm not continuing. I finished 4 series and I caught up on 2 of them. So that feels pretty good. I think I needed to be ruthless with the series I was DNFing. Like if I'm not loving a book one, I just don't want that series to then be like hanging over me. So just cutting it at book 1 felt really good. And then if we're looking at just books in general, I started 38 series throughout the year. So 19 of them were DNF. I think a couple of them I finished during the year, and then some are continuing on to the next year. And I read 49 sequels this year. So that was not a book one, but an actual sequel, 49 of them. That's what's really great. Like, yes, I started a bunch, but if we take away the 19 that I DNF'd, that leaves us with 17 that I started and like want to keep going on. Some of them I caught up with. So that feels like a really good number. Like that doesn't feel too overwhelming. And some of those I did actually wrap up already in 2025. And then reading 49 sequels, that's huge. I mean, obviously I started a lot of series, but because I was being ruthless, I wasn't like stacking up series that I'm gonna have to continue. So it's not so bad that the sequels read is as high as the series started. If we're looking at the format of the books I read a majority of owned books this year, which probably not since 2020 when I couldn't really use the library. Like I haven't read that many owned books in a very long time. So I read 89 books off of my shelves. This does not include like all of the books that like I unhauled. So I got rid of more than this for sure. But I read 89 of them. And then from the library, I only picked up 26 physical books from the library, which again is like showing a huge amount of restraint for me. I normally read mostly books from the library and occasionally pick up books off my shelves, but that was not the case this year. And then I read 55 audiobooks throughout the year. Overall, I'm very happy with how those stats look that feels good to me. Something that I'm not sure about is the ratings. So you're going to notice that on the far left of this graph, that is the DNF bar. So in 2025, I DNF'd 52 books. This is the first time that I have tracked that. This does not include books that I like read a couple pages of and DNF'd. This is like books that I was reading with the intention to finish and then ended up DNFing them like 50, 100, 300 pages in, sometimes more than that. So that is a very high number. And I think a large part of that is due to the fact that I was trying a lot of older fantasy and realizing that older fantasy, some of the things that it focuses on is not for me. And some of the ways that fantasy was written in the past is not for me. And so this is a very high number because I was really forcing myself to like try all of these books that have been hanging on for a long time and kind of like, okay, am I going to read it or not? And I was very liberal with the DNFs, I'll admit it. I had 1 1-star read, 12 2-stars, which is a little higher than I'd like, but not terrible. 55 3-stars. So again, this is like, I don't mind having 3 stars that much, but 55 does feel a little high. I do prefer books to be like 3.5 and above. When possible, that just means I'm enjoying it more, because a 3 for me is like a meh rating. Like, I read it, it wasn't bad, and I like had an okay time, but it feels very meh. Like, these are books I'm not going to remember later. These are books that didn't really do much for me. So definitely in the future it'd be nice if I didn't have as many meh ratings. And then we had 64 4-stars and 34 5-stars. So definitely like we did pretty good on that front. If I pop over to Storygraph, it tells me I had an average rating of 3.79. That is very close to a 4-star rating or above. It does not include like all the DNFs. Like, I don't rate a book if I DNF it, and so it doesn't include like all of those like less than good experiences, but it does mean that the books I was finishing were mostly books I was enjoying. I read 222 books this year. I'm going to show you a graph of how many books I read throughout the year. You can see a giant spike for 2 readathons that I did. I did Escape the Readathon in May and then Wonderthon in June. So that's why there's this like massive spike in the middle of the graph. And then I will also show you the pages read. I read 74,455 pages throughout the year. I will say, with the number of books and the amount of pages, I read over 100 graphic novels, manga, comics throughout the year. So this is a little skewed by that. So I didn't read 222 novels. There was a large portion of graphic novels, manga, things that are very easy to read and kind of crank up that page count pretty easily. So those are my goals and also my 2025 stats. I would love to know how you feel that your reading year went. I feel like it was a year of ups and downs for me. Like, I DNF'd a lot of books. I feel like I really transformed my shelves this year. So in that aspect, I feel like I put in the work to kind of wade through some books that like I wasn't sure of to like get them off of my shelves. And I feel like every day that I've been like reading and working on this project of like getting through my physical books, I'm more and more excited about the books that I own, because I'm kind of weeding out the ones that I was less interested in. And if I'm adding books, I'm adding in books that I'm more interested in. And I'm also being much more picky with the books that I'm adding onto my shelves, which has felt really good. I've been seeing a lot of forward momentum. So from that aspect, really good. I think I didn't have a ton of like all-time favorite books this year, but that's okay. I think I've learned a lot about myself as a reader, and moving forward, I'm going to be able to pick out books that I think I will love even better, because I've learned so much about what I do and don't like just by trying so many different things. So please let me know how you think your reading year went. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.